Hey YouTube, Mike the Alpha Hoarder here. If you don't know me, and you couldn't guess by the channel name, I hoard and collect alpha cards. Now my friends and my family, they think I'm insane. They might be onto something. But rather than ramble about this stuff in front of them, I decided to turn to the endless void that is YouTube. And here I am documenting and sharing my collection. So, today I'm going to grow my hoard. I've got some really nice pieces to add to the collection I'm very excited to open. And then I also wanted to chat about bidding on eBay. So I apologize in advance. You're going to hear from future Mike a couple of times. I had some technical glitches during this video, so some parts of it might be out of sync because the audio was being added after. So we'll get into it. First, a little bit of background. eBay, Heritage, PWCC, many of these auction houses, they use what's called an English auction, which is a style of auction that you're probably most familiar with. The price of the item starts very low, 0 or at a reserve or whatever, and it increases a little bit with each bidder can increment it up. And the person who wins is the person who bid the highest amount. But they don't pay what they bid. They pay what the second highest amount was. So often in an English auction, the winner was willing to pay more than they actually paid. Now eBay auctions end at a fixed time. So in MTG terms, you can think of the end of the auction as a turn-based action. Whereas Heritage and a lot of these other companies, lots of auction houses will add time as a bid comes in so that you always have time to respond. So in MTG terms, the bids go on the stack, as it were. Now, there's actually other kinds of auctions too. There's other styles of auctions. One of them is called a Dutch auction. Now this starts high and then works its way down. And the first person who calls mine gets it. That's not going to bend. That's an interesting style. It tends to encourage higher sale prices because there's a great deal of FOMO that kicks in. You know, you don't want to wait too long and someone else will jump in and grab it. And then there's a style called a blind auction, or first price sealed bid. And the idea with this is everybody who's participating in the auction submits their best and final offer. And they don't get to see each other's offers, so there's no information about other bidders. This isn't in any kind of case, huh? There isn't any information about the other bidders. You just have to go by your own personal assessment, what you're willing to pay. And then whoever bid the most wins. They pay their bid, they get the item. And then a fourth style is called a victory auction, or a second price sealed bid. So this is a lot like a blind auction, but with an English auction ending. So once more, everyone puts in their bids. There is no information shared about the different bidders because it's all blind. And the person who bid the most wins. But instead of paying their bid, they pay what the second highest bid was. Very nice. Counterspell. This is an uncommon. This one's really off center. This is an uncommon, and it's priced a fair amount higher than most uncommons because of its playability. So this is a fine example of how playability intersects with collectability and affects the market demand. So this price definitely reflects that this is a deeper market. So anyway, the reason I'm mentioning these other kind of auctions is because I actually like to approach eBay as if it were a blind auction and not an English auction. And I find that this tends to make me place better bids and get better results. So what I do is I submit my best and final offer, and I do that in the last possible second, so that it's treated as if it's blind, basically, so that nobody has time to respond to it. Now, some people call this sniping. I do want to clarify, though, because sniping can mean two different things to different people, and one form of sniping I consider a little bit silly. Let me throw something up on the screen here. Let me just open this box first. Okay, so check this out. This is an unlimited volcanic eruption, graded PSA 10. Now, in my opinion, this is an example of two people sniping, assuming that it was a sort of Vickery style snipe, where they would put in a really high bid in order to win, but then they would only have to pay the second highest bid. And I don't think it went so well in this case. Now, I bought from this seller. He is legit. So I don't think there was funny business, at least from his end, going on here. You know, no money laundering or anything funny like that. But if you take a look at the bid history, the price was $335 up until about 8 seconds before the auction closed. Now, in the following 2 seconds, two different bids come in. First, the previous high bidder, the guy who had the $335 bid, he raises his max to something higher than $5,655. And also in those 2 seconds, a brand new bidder who had not yet participated shows up, and he does his own snipe. And he drops in the number 5,555. Now, given the time difference here, it seems doubtful to me that they saw each other and they were competing with each other. You know, a 2-second difference, when you add the delays for the apps to refresh and so forth, it's likely they both just put in their number and hit submit, and then, you know, didn't see what happened until it ended. And it seems to me they were both trying to snipe with a Vickery style thinking, and what ended up happening is that somebody paid $5,655 for this volcanic eruption. Well, is it worth that? It is possible. Maybe these two people happen to be trying to complete PSA 10 unlimited sets. You know, that is a thing. So, yeah, it's possible. But, you know, the BGS pop on this card is 40. There's no 10s, but there's 2 at 9.5. The PSA pop is 40 also. There's 3 10s, 26 9s. And for this kind of money, for $5,500, you can get a pretty clean alpha dual land. Not an underground C, but, you know, there's a number of the dual lands that will fall in that price range. You can get a very clean alpha time vault. Power 10, right? So, you know, was it worth it? I don't think so. And I think this is the wrong way to do sniping. So when I say that I snipe, this is not what I mean. I don't throw in a number super high, just hoping that I become the victor. I actually put in my best and final offer. For a couple of reasons that I'll go through. First, let's see what we got here. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, this is a fun one. So, I was actually featured, not by name, on MTG North's channel. They do a cool series over there. The like high rollers or something, and they go through the most expensive sales. And I was pretty pumped to get to get a mention on there with this little set of alphas. Now there's something in particular I have to check here.
At number 7, look at that alpha lot, Morgan.
Paul and I actually discussed this one a fair bit before we filmed the video. And that Sarah's an uncommon. The Nightmare is a rare, and the Stasis are rare, right?
Yeah. The Nightmare there clearly has a nice ding in it.
It's no, it's not.
So we did do some lookups. A lot of these cards have sold recently. We've talked about this. A lot of alpha market. And he seems like he did overpay a little bit.
A little bit. We saw a sold Sarah for $13.50 near mint. We saw a sold Stasis for around $17.50 near mint. And the only thing we could find on the Nightmare recently was a couple of higher played ones for around $1,900, $2,000 around that area.
It doesn't sell very often, right? It's a rare.
But if you add that up, it doesn't pay what he paid, which was, Paul?
That sold for $75.50.
Now, one thing I did say, you're getting all 3 cards from one seller rather than buying them from 3 different people. So, you know, you have that. They are in really good condition, minus the mark on the back of the Nightmare.
Yeah.
They were of the opinion that I overpaid on this set, and they might be right. It's going to come down to the Nightmare. So in the picture, there's what at first appeared to me to be a binder ding. But I inquired before bidding because the front does not look damaged, in the picture at least. And the seller told me very explicitly that it is a print dot. So we shall see, because that will determine if this was worth it or not. Look at this little set. Isn't that something? You don't see these cards that often. Take a look at the condition here. What the hell was I talking about? What was I talking about? Oh, right. Okay, so why do I do this best and final offer thing? So first of all, I don't like to give out any information about how badly I want a card or what my max is or anything like that too early. And the earlier you put in bids, the amount of bids you put in, how quickly or aggressively you respond to bids, this is all information that you're leaking to your competition. And, you know, too much movement on a card also draws attention. And, you know, in a perfect auction for a buyer is one that no one else notices. And so you get it cheap because there isn't competition on that particular listing. I also don't want to give any competitors any time for an emotional response. So something I've noticed, because it's how I do it as well, how I did it as well, is that when most people are bidding, the number that they put in isn't the highest number that would still make the deal worth it for them. It's the number that they would like to get it at. It would be nice if I could get it for this. It'd be a deal if I get it for this, as opposed to I'm willing to pay this, or this is worth no more than this. And so if my best and final offer can beat their wouldn't it be nice price, I really don't want to give them time to process that and then to move to their true max. And so by coming in at the last second, they're not going to be able to pivot and you know, reconsider the number. Okay, so this front is very clean. If the back is a binder bite, what is it? What is it? No, I think it is a print dot. Yeah, there's no damage there. It is just an inconveniently placed print dot. In that case, that makes this worth it. That would roughly double the value of this card compared to what MTG North was predicting. Let's see if we can tell for sure. It's always dubious if this will show up on the camera or not. Oh yeah, look at that. It is a print dot. we have a clean edge. Not that you can tell because it's so out of focus. Doing my best. Oh, there we go. Ah, lovely. Clean Nightmare. Iconic card. Very hard to find on the market. There's a couple of graded ones that sit out there for, you know, $4 to $6 grand, but you don't see a clean copy go by all that often raw like this. Very happy with that. So I'm actually pleased with this set. You know, maybe I paid a little much for it. I don't know. I also think MTG North underpriced this one. I see these. I didn't see the particular auction they referenced, but I've seen these going for $2,000 to $3,000 usually in decent condition. So anyway, well, I'm happy with this. I'm happy with these for sure. So I don't want to give my competition time to have an emotional response. I also don't want to have time for an emotional response. Now, this is something that I have to deal with. I mean, I'm a collector. I'm a human, allegedly. And so this has been an issue for me in the past with chase cards. There's some cards that hit the market so rarely, and when they do, you know, I want them. And that can be very disruptive if it mixes with more rational thinking. And so I like to know days ahead of time what my best and final is. And there's no revisions. Once I have that worked out, I sit until the end, and that's the number that I'm putting in. Nothing else. Nothing higher, no matter what. And I do that at 3 seconds. Now, I have seen a lot of people like to do it around 60 seconds, and then a whole bunch do it at about 10 seconds. Ooh. This is a gentleman, I bought most of his collection in 2020 and into 2021. He only has a couple of pieces left. Ones I already had, so I didn't end up picking them up, but this is one where I'd love to get another copy if I can. His cards are always very, very clean. This looks like no exception. So anyway, if you drop a bid in with 3 seconds to go, I figure there's got to be a half a second in lost time just between your app posting it up and then pushing it out to another app. Human reaction time is about 500 milliseconds, so if you hit that button with 3 seconds to go, by the time it shows up on the other person's screen, there's maybe 2 seconds to go just for their brain to see the new number and understand it. And then they have, you know, a second and a half maybe to figure out what to do next. And that's just not a lot of time. Even if someone's getting emotional, they need a little bit more time than that just to, you know, make sure they're not hitting the wrong button. And I used to really worry about missing the end of an auction. You know, I'd hit it at 3 seconds and it would never go in, but that's never happened. And I've done, you know, hundreds and hundreds of them. So as long as you have decent Wi-Fi or 5G or whatever. And then there's another reason I do this, and it's to protect myself against shill bidding, which, if you don't know, is quite a serious issue. Yikes, that's, I don't know what kind of glue they use on these boxes. But anyway, shill bidding is quite a serious issue in collector space. This is, so shill bidding is when an insider, somebody an invested party in the sale is placing bids, not with the intention of winning, but with the intention of increasing the sale price, or else revealing your max so that they can then increase the sale price. This is what PWCC was infamously booted off eBay for. They were accused of doing. And you know, I've seen it before for sure. I've been in auctions where that happened. You know, it'd be a fairly quiet auction. I'd put in a bid, and then all of a sudden I would get outbid to some huge number. You know, so a whole bunch of series of bids would come in and I'd be outbid. And then a few minutes later, I'd get that email from eBay that said a bid had been retracted and I'm now the high bidder. And then slowly and surely, as that auction played out, the price would work its way up to that number I'd put in there. So it's quite disconcerting. PWCC is one of the places where I did in fact have that experience. There's a few other sellers as well, but I won't mention them because it's worth noting a lot of these guys that are, you know, they do consignments, they might not be the ones doing it. It's really hard to say. If I consign my card to somebody and I'm watching it bid and, you know, I'm watching it auction off, you know, I could go and do that, and they wouldn't know that I was doing it. They're just running the auction, so it's hard to know. But presumably eBay was pretty sure that PWCC themselves were the source of the problem in that case. But anyway, if you don't put in your real bid until the very end, then you can't be manipulated by shill bidders, because you're not giving out any information. You're not making that information accessible. What a clean Lord of the Pit. Another one of these cards I can't get enough of. Teeden, I'm working on a whole Teeden art set. He does so many iconic cards. Mana Vault, Time Twister, Chaos Orb, Soul Ring, Juzam Jin, Lord of the Pit. List goes on and on with him. One of the artists I find most iconic. So anyway, best and final right at the end. Protects you from the emotion of your competition, protects you from your own emotion, protects you from shill bidding. A few other little tips. Don't use even numbers. I look at a lot of bid history. I'm participating in a lot of auctions. Most people do a number divisible by 5. It's just the way we think. Another thing I see a lot of is, if you've got a number in mind, you know, say $20, round a dollar up, not under. After numbers ending in 5, I see a lot of 9s, because I think subconsciously people think in terms of the prices that they see at stores. So, you know, they'll put 19 in, or 29 or 199 or whatever. So if you're happy paying 20, you might as well put 21. If you're happy paying 200, don't put 199, put 201, and add a couple of cents. You know, if 100 is okay with you, then 102.77 is probably okay with you. And now that'll beat 100, and it even beats 102. Oh, this is from an interesting gentleman. So I just got acquainted with this guy. I had a chat with him on the phone not too long ago. He's an older guy. He has got an incredible collection. He's got just piles of beta cards. He has hundreds of sets of Fallen Empires. He's got anything 90s, early 2000s. Just an unbelievable amount of cards. Really nice guy. He's also got some Alpha. All right, so best and final, last 3 seconds. How do you figure out your best and final? Well, on modern stuff, it's really easy. You just research the card. You know, you look at the recently solds, hit your network, your social media groups, your discords, know the sales, know the buy list, know the availability, you know, the market depth. And then you pretty much know what a card is worth. Depending what you're doing with it, you know, if you're a speculator versus a dealer, versus an investor that's going to sit on it, you know, you might have to work a margin in, you might not, but you pretty much know what it's worth to pay. The thing is, that's not so easy to do for alpha cards or just for any old near mint card. I generally try to deal with as close to near mint as I can, but you know, you're talking about Arabian Nights near mint or something like this. The market's just pretty shallow. The sales are too infrequent. The prices are too inconsistent, and it's so condition sensitive that recent sales rarely match. You know, like okay, so even here, you can probably find a few recent sales for Sarah Angel, and the number is going to bounce a bit all over the place. And some of that is just market noise. Because the transaction volume is so low, you're going to get a lot more fluctuations just depending on the specific asks and bids of the people participating in that specific auction. But you're also going to get a lot of variance because small differences in condition make two different listings really apples and oranges, because the older the stuff gets, the more significant small condition changes are. These couple of chips, on an unlimited card aren't going to make that much of a price difference compared to a true near mint. On an alpha, they do. And so it is a lot harder to figure out what it's worth to pay for some of these old and less common cards. Now, still do all that research that I mentioned. You want to know what the card is probably worth, the ballpark at least. But then really you need to determine what the card is worth to you, and that'll sort of depend what you're doing. If you're a collector, that's going to mean one thing. If you're a dealer, what can you sell it for? Can you sit on it? Will you grade it, etc.? If you're a speculator, a player, depending on your role and your goals, what the card is worth to you is going to change a little bit. Okay, apologies. So I had some technical issues, and I had to reshoot the whole second half of this video much after the fact. So I was originally thinking I'd just reshoot the whole thing, and this kind of sat in my queue for a while. But I'm just going to redo the audio for the end, so I apologize for the discontinuity here. What I'm saying probably isn't lining up with what's going on the screen. I'll wrap it up quickly though. So the point I was about to make before I had an issue in the original video, it was how to price these old vintage cards, just because it's so difficult to get data out of the sales, the infrequent sales, and to compare listings. So the quick answer is I find it useful to participate in as many alpha auctions as I can, even the ones I don't care about winning. And this just causes eBay to pile up some alerts in my inbox with the final selling prices. And that's just useful to be able to sift through, just to see it coming in. And then you start to develop an instinct for the pricing. And so, I take that sort of fuzzy general data, and then I spend a lot of mental energy trying to play out the scenario of losing the auction to a given price point, and then seeing where that leaves me. You've heard me in this video and other people constantly say that emotion is, dangerous. And that can be true. There are parts of the process where you do not want emotion running the show. But I find that after an auction, the emotions you feel is sort of your instinct reconciling with the facts as they played out. Those emotions can actually be quite helpful. And so if you can tap into them ahead of time, they can be a useful guide. So as an example, suppose I want a gem mint raw blessing, and I want to spend $1,100 on it. So I place that bid, I snipe it, and someone else wins for $1,250. So I try to place myself in that imagined moment, and then I try to read my instincts. So am I content with $1,100 in my hand, ready to redeploy? Or would I have in fact been happier with the blessing at the $1,250 price point, as the other guy that won that auction? And if you play with this exercise enough, you can usually sense the balance point, the tipping point. You can kind of feel out when you'd be in a situation where you overspent, you could have used that money for something better. And it's just always useful to frame this in terms of opportunity costs. So find that number, and then you have your best and final. And I guess it's worth saying there's other times when it's useful to cast a wide net. Just sort of put that steal price on a bunch of different auctions, and some of them no one else bids on, and you actually do win those. But really here I'm talking about the ones you want to win. It's a card you're following, and you need to be methodical. And so this is the approach that works for me. So factor how badly you want or you need the card. Many of us are collectors and players in addition to investors, and so it may make no sense to buy a share of Iron Mountain for more than the current market price, but if you're collecting and playing with physical Magic cards, there are non-market factors to consider. Just make sure you do that accounting ahead of time. Have your best and final price before the auction ends. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that you can make use of third-party services such as Gixxen.com. So this is an automated sniper tool. All of the reasons that I mentioned for why sniping is important apply, but even if you thought all this out ahead of time and you really know your best and final and you're sitting there waiting for the countdown to throw it in, there is still this moment sometimes where the price jumps past the number that you were planning to submit. And you have that moment of conflict where part of you quickly tries to reconsider if you did your math right, if you accounted for it right, if you should throw another $25 on top or whatever. And it's easy to fall into a trap there. If you're being diligent about it, it's probably not a big deal, but it is kind of nice to completely delegate this to software. And, it also will prevent you from missing auctions. Sometimes, they end in the middle of the night, or they happen to end when I'm putting the kids to bed, or some other time when I need to be present and not on eBay. And, using software kind of solves that problem. Now, I haven't used this a ton. I know about these tools, but I was always cautious. I work in software. I have a certain, perhaps surprising allergy to other people's software, just because I've seen exploits and hacks, and I'm hesitant to trust software that links up into accounts. But in this case, I decided to try it after Saint from Fabled Hunters mentioned it during his interview with David from Gem Mint MTG. Two creators that I enjoy quite a bit. And once he said he's been using it for a while, I decided to give it a shot. And it is really nice. It's really nice. It removes the emotion, the pre-auction emotion 100% from the equation. And you basically just put in an item number, you put in your max bid, and then you pick a time window, how far in advance you want it to kick that bid in. And I've used it a few dozen times now, and it's worked really great. So I'm probably going to rely on that more, but I will report back later. All right, so that's my video. I'm really sorry about the technical issues. It's sort of a weird situation that happened, but I didn't really want to reshoot the whole thing, so I thought this would be better. Hopefully it was okay. And thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching the video today. If you enjoyed it, you can let me know by listening to Let It Go from Disney's Frozen on repeat and as loud as possible while working out at a gym. See you next time.